Hey, it's your host, Chris DeMakes. Do you know that I write custom songs? That's right. I'd love to write you, that special someone, coworker, friend, or foe, their very own custom song. Makes a great gift for birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, and more. For more info, email me at chrisdemakes@gmail.com. Now let's get into this awesome episode. Hey metalheads, ghosts, goblins, vampires, werewolves, and ghouls, we got some death coming your way. Today's guests are drummer Donald Tardy and his brother, lead vocalist John Tardy of the Tampa, Florida death metal band Obituary. It was cool to catch up with the brothers. A ton of laughs were had. Together they took me through the writing, recording, and release of the Obituary classic Slowly We Rot, taken from their 1989 album of the same name. I learned how legendary death metal producer Scott Burns went from operating the studio gear as a second engineer to winding up in the producer's chair for the sessions of the album. Scott's first major break. I found researching the lyrics online to be more painstaking for this episode than any other I've done here on Chris DeMakes a Podcast. Why, you ask? Well, let's just say that John had a very interesting way of going about the lyrics on Slowly We Rot. Something I've never heard of before in almost 30 years in the music business. These guys are lifers, still out there, night after night, absolutely killing it. Pun intended. For all this and a whole lot more, grab your pitchforks and flying V guitars. This is a good one.
Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a Podcast.
Donald, John, what's going on?
What's up, brother?
Not too much. I got to thinking about Obituary. The one word that keeps coming to mind with me, and I just, it's hard to say. I've known you forever. You're my friends. It's hard to talk to your friends in this terminology because it's weird in a sense, but you guys are like one of the most influential death metal bands. It's crazy. I remember when I met Donald when he was out with Andrew WK playing drums on the Warped Tour in 2003. I didn't know that, some of Obituary was the backing band for Andrew, and I was starstruck. I remember meeting you like a barbecue one night, and like I remember thinking the next day, does he think like I was like taking the piss out of him or something? Like this punk band likes my band, but like I grew up with you guys, and got to be friends with you, and it's an honor to have you on my podcast.
Right on, man. We don't try too hard when it comes to back to what your first comment was, we did not try very hard as a band to become the influential band of death metal or Florida death metal, but we proudly do what we do, and we dig what we do.
Well, absolutely. And I have so much respect for you guys because you're cut from the same cloth as a band such as myself and many others. We're working class bands. We go out, we bring the show, we're door-to-door salesmen. We bring our show town to town, and that's what you guys have been doing now for over 30 years, and it's impressive. For the listeners, I want to give a little backstory on the band right now. You guys formed in Tampa in 1984. You're originally called Executioner, but changed the band name to Obituary in 1988. As we've said, you guys are a fundamental act in the development of death metal music. You've released 10 studio albums. John and Donald are original members, along with Trevor Paris, and in my notes here, I was trying to think. I want to say it was 1990. Do you guys recall playing Janus with Morbid Angel? I swear that was the bill. Does that sound about right?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys were just, to me, and it's interesting, the thrash metal, death metal guys hated the glam posers, and so did the punks. But the punks and the death metal guys always kind of got along. It was kind of like an understanding there of like, okay, we don't like all of them, and a lot of the beats and everything, and some of the musicianship. Of course, you had bands like DRI and Cro-Mags that was called crossover. It was the punks and this stuff aligning. It was just a really really exciting time. The song we're going to talk about today, "Slowly We Rot," is from the album of the same title. It's your debut that was released on June 14th, 1989. Considered to be one of the band's heaviest efforts, despite being recorded in standard E tuning, which is crazy because I didn't even think about that until I started listening to this track. It's like, This is 89, before Pro Tools, before all the recording trickery you can do, and standard E-tuning. This is heavy as hell. You know, the remainder of your output was, I believe, in D-tuning, maybe even lower tuning. The record was produced by the legendary Scott Burns. Scott was crucial to the emergence of the Florida death metal scene. Aside from Obituary, he produced albums for Death, Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, Sepultura, Cynic, and Atheist. His last album he ever did was 2005's Frozen in Time by Obituary, which is crazy. I guess Scott's doing computer programming now. The second Obituary record, Cause of Death, released in September of 90, often considered to be one of the most important death metal albums of all time. Your third record, End Complete, sold more than 100,000 copies. It was your first album to chart in the US and Europe. The video for End Complete received significant airplay on the Headbangers Ball, which was like my favorite show in the world back then. On the fourth record, World Demise, you guys toured with such bands as Napalm Death and then the Unknown Machine Head at the time. And after the release of your fifth record, Back from the Dead 97, you guys disbanded for a while. And like I said, in 03, that's when I met Donald out on the road, and we just hit it off. You know, we're both from Florida, had a ton in common. And it wasn't too long after that, you guys reformed and did the Frozen in Time record in 2005. I was living in Ybor City outside of Tampa at that point, not too far from you guys. And I remember coming over to Redneck Studios, built right in your backyard. And I kind of saw it from the ground up. Donald was learning Pro Tools then, as was I.
It's funny how long ago that was. It's hard to believe how quickly 20 years goes, but yeah, learning Pro Tools, that was when Pro Tools was new, and we were finally at that point where we said we keep going to a studio, More Sound, and we keep going there and spending the money on the budget for the album when it seems like we're going to make this move into this Pro Tools rig, and we did it. And so yeah, that's right. When, like you said, when you were coming, we were just learning Pro Tools and going, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? You know?
And what's really crazy to think, when you were talking about the time that's passed, is in 2005, 15 years prior, I had seen you in 1990. That seemed like it was 80 years before, you know, and now it's only been another 15 years, 16 years now since 05 that we're sitting here talking now. It's like, where the heck did the time go? It's crazy. You guys released your ninth record, Inked in Blood, in 2014. It was the first Obituary album not to be recorded with longtime bassist Frank Watkins, whom we lost in 2015. So rest in peace to Frank. The band self-funded the record, and in November and December of 2018, you guys toured Europe. When I found out about this, I had envy. Okay, it wasn't jealousy, but it was envy. I was like, holy crap. You guys toured as part of Slayer's farewell tour along with Lamb of God and Anthrax, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about that. How was that?
As you can imagine, it was a dream come true. You know, it's been on a bucket list of ours for a long time to be able to tour with Slayer. You know, we played a couple of festivals here and there, but to go do an entire tour with them, it was, I mean, every night we would sit out front, beer in our hands, just like we walked into the arena to watch Slayer. And it was just every single night. It was great. And it was awesome. Totally
I was
awesome.
so excited when I saw them, like, you know, especially for Europe, which you guys have always done great over there. But I was just like, yes, this is the perfect band. And there could have been a lot of bands that got that slot, but I'm so grateful that you guys did. That's really cool. And I guess you guys are working on a monster of a new album. That's what I read, anyways. That's going to be released in 2022 with a tour to follow. And the tour, I don't know if this is the one you're speaking of, but is that with Black Label Society and Prong?
Yeah, it is. That's the one that when this pandemic went down in March 2020, we were halfway through it, way up in like Detroit, up Michigan, and like all of us that were on tour at the time, the tour got canceled. We got sent home. And there were still 13 dates left on that tour. So now we've waited a year and a half. Thank the Lord, we are ready to get back out on the road. And so, yeah, the new dates, the tour is October, November with Black Label Society. So, yeah, we're ready to get this thing fired back up.
And 3 heavy bands, but 3 distinctly different bands. How were you guys received? How was the package as a whole?
It's exactly why we're just so happy they called us back, because we were having such a good time on that tour. Zach's awesome to watch every night. I mean, he's the other guy too. You can go out there every night and just be in awe over him on stage.
Sure.
Is that cool? But from the whole band and the whole crew, we were having such a good time and getting such a good response from the Black Label fans, which, you know, them, they're diehard kids that show up to see Zach, that's for sure. But man, we were just having such a good reaction from the fans that we were just really keeping our fingers crossed that if he ever does some more shows, he would call us back. So we're really happy that he did and get to go ahead and do some more shows.
That's awesome. Well, I know the fans are going to be excited for new Obituary music. Your last record was a self-titled album in 2017, your 10th record. So I know they'll be excited for that. And one last thing before we dive into the song and start dissecting this, I think dissecting's the perfect word for a death metal band. I want to talk a little bit, and my producer Chris Chris is a cat lover. I guess Donald started a cat sanctuary organization called Metal Meowlicia, an organization practicing trap, neuter, vaccinate, and return, and caring for 25 cat colonies of over 200 cats. What is this all about? This is news to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a sanctuary. It's simply that in my neighborhood 15 years ago, just like everybody, you're just like, man, I see this cat, this cat just had kittens in the bushes. This cat, I'm seeing cats getting run over. I see so many homeless that whatever. I figured out through the Humane Society's program, just how I can help my community, and it started it in my backyard. A feral cat kept coming through. I trapped him, got him spay neutered, released him right where I trapped him. So he lives his life, and he can't keep having babies. She can't keep having babies, and they get their rabies vaccinations. And we just do that throughout our community.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and then I got a big heart, so we have 25 locations that the cats live, behind a bowling alley, behind a Taco Bell, blah blah blah. That we just provide fresh water and food for every night. You
are a saint among saints. That's awesome, Donald.
Right on.
Very very cool. Well, slowly we rot. I want you guys to take me back a little bit here. June 14th, '89. It's before the internet. Okay, my band started before the internet too, but it's like, I almost try to think back, like when we got signed, like our first records, like it was tape trading, it was zines, it was mail order, it was going to Aces Records in Tampa, or, going to the places where you bought all your music and like thumbing through the records or talking to, usually it was the store clerk. They were the ones with the wealth of information. But how the hell, aside from being talented, how the hell did you guys get signed to Roadrunner on your first record? How did that transpire?
What it was is we had two songs that were released on a compilation album called Raging Death.
Yes.
Yep. And that was with Boravor.
Yeah. And
it was on Godly Records, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was before we were signed. We were still called Executioner. On that same release was Sadis, Deicide. Everyone had 2 songs on it. So it was a compilation vinyl. And there's your answer. We were a part of that. Roadrunner Records saw it, heard us, and approached us, and that's how we got signed in the first place as a band. And that was probably 1986, I think, that we actually put that thing out.
And it was probably the photo shoot with me in my gym shorts that did it, though.
That's what sold them. Like, we got to sign up this band.
That's what sold them. It was those gym shorts and those socks with the color stripes on them. That was it. And we were in there.
Well, we all had some goofy looks back in the day, but some of the thrash death metal bands, it's pretty hilarious, especially like Anthrax going through their jams phase,
Yeah. And hell, what do you mean back in the day? Our look nowadays hasn't changed.
I wasn't going to say that. You had to out yourself there, Donald. That's awesome. But what was that like? Tampa's the place, especially back then. It was I've heard it called the death metal capital of the world. How integral was that to you guys? Because it was easy to play shows. I know that there was competition is always amongst bands. It can be a healthy competition, but it seems like it was kind of there was some solidarity within the scene. Like you guys would play with, like, as I said, Morbid Angel and all the other bands that were from the area. What was that like back then to launch your band in Tampa?
Yeah, it was killer. But I don't think we had a contrast. We didn't know what to compare it to. Like, again, before the internet, before you knew, I was at that time, literally, I was a 16-year-old kid. So we were writing music, going crazy, playing cover tunes. We realized our friends are enjoying our tunes more than the Slayer song we're trying to play. So, but we didn't really think much about what's going on in the world and what West Coast and who's going on in California. We were going for it. And it was pretty amazing and so coincidental and strange that those bands were all right here in Tampa, us, Deicide and Morbid Angel, and Malevolent Creation, and just so many bands from really, really early on, that how it came from Central Florida, I don't even know, besides simply saying it was coincidence. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but it's amazing that those were the 3 core bands that really kind of and of course, in Orlando, Chuck Schuldiner and Death. Obviously,
Sure.
that was the beginning of it. That's the godfather of really taking shit seriously. And when we heard that, we were like, oh my God, you got to either become better as a band or you're going to get left in the dust. So the friendly competition and the friendly whatever you call it also put the flame under your ass to where you took that shit serious here in Tampa, or you're going to get laughed at, you know?
Yeah, I think all the heat and the old people might have all got you guys angry too and fired up.
It was also interesting, man. I remember we used to have so much fun just getting off the bus, going to our garage at my mom's house and jamming. And we had more fun in there than doing anything else. We never really thought about doing recordings. We never thought about being a touring band. I don't know, maybe these guys were thinking about it, but it just seems like it was just it was so far out of our thoughts at the time. We were just so content with being in that garage and literally even recording on a tape deck with play and record. And we just sit and listen to that, just have such a good time with that I don't even remember. I think one of us had the idea of, hey, let's put the vinyl together. And we did a little 40, it was a 33 and a half, but
Yeah.
like a 45 record. And that was really the only thing that we ever did as far as trying to put demo tapes out or anything like that. That was really the only thing we did, but it was just so cool. We were so content having that and just being in our own little world there that just to be doing it to this day is pretty crazy.
Well, if the listeners can hear how giddy I am in my voice and why is Chris so excited to talk to a death metal band? I'm a metalhead, you know. If I could have played guitar better, I would have been in a thrash band or a death metal band. But punk rock was only 3 chords, and I learned the patterns pretty good. I got my way around it. But I mean, hell, Less Than Jake, one of our most famous songs, is All My Best Friends Are Metalheads, and I was so into metal. As I said, I saw you guys, and it was the scene was interspersed. It was intertwined at that point. Like I said, the punks were kind of hanging. Not all the punks, not all the death metal guys, the thrash guys, but a lot of us were, and it was just kind of all one great scene. And if you were from Tampa at that time back in the day, you know, if you were there, you know, it was magic. Slowly We Rot is 3 minutes and 36 seconds. It starts off with 5 seconds. The first 5 seconds are this guitar fades in the right speaker. And at 6 seconds, you get the first drum and cymbal hit. At 13 seconds, the drums kick in with this slow, sludgy dirge, this groove that Donald's doing. It's just killer. And it almost sounds like a very buried scream here, too, as the drums kick in. Was that a scream, or is that some kind of pre-delay echo I'm hearing there?
Geez, to break it down, to get an answer out of us, we're actually going to listen to you more than
I'm sitting here taking notes myself.
You know, I gotta remember, you know, we as musicians, I've said this before, we don't sit around and listen to our own music. Shit, you guys probably haven't listened to this in 30 years.
Yeah. Well,
except for playing it live, of course.
I swear, I think people do think you sit around and listen to your own records all day long because they just assume you know every song, right? The way it was, you can sit down and play it right now. And, you know, Lord knows some of the live streams we did, we had to go back and learn these things. It was humorous.
I've done that too. I've also done it probably, you learn a song in the studio and you have to go recreate it live. It's like, how did I do that? How did I play that? So at the, we're going to go with it was a scream that's buried there. And this is all what I'm calling an intro of the song at this point. At the 27-second mark, there's a single, almost like church bell that chimes pretty loud. It's the only time it happens in the song. Whose idea was that? Was that Scott Burns or something you guys thought of?
It was either me or John, I'm sure.
A lot of, you know.
Yeah, you know, again, it's like kids. In fact, it's not just the bell. It's like, you know, this is the first time we're making a producer do his job because, you know, here we are with 1,000 ideas and we're thinking 1,000 miles an hour. And I think if you break that thing down, it's actually backwards reverb that comes on the toms before the bell. Shun dong. So that's one of the band members, probably myself or my brother, saying it with our mouths, saying, "Dude, I wanted to go shun dong," and then Scott had to figure it out. You know.
Yeah.
I love how we talk as musicians, shun dong, and we understand each other. You know, I'm trying to convey this so people know what the hell we're talking about.
Yep.
What was that like for you guys? I mean, this guy at the time, I mean, Scott Burns was just legendary. He was godlike.
Well, that's what's cool is he was super, super duper young and new at it at this time as well, because people don't know this, but we started that record with an engineer named Rick Miller. Rick was an engineer at Morrisound Recordings. Rick's parents, one of his parents had medical issues, so he had to tap out. At that time, Scott was one of those dudes that was in the studio as the
emptying trash cans.
Yeah, emptying trash cans. This is funny. Sweeping up the floors. You know, those big boards back then, all the patching you had to do when you want,
sure.
Hey, you want a little delay on that? Well, hang on a second, you got to patch it from 130 from channel 20 to here, blah, blah, blah. Scott was that guy. He was helping Rick Miller as just a helper. And when Rick said, man, I don't know what to do, I got to go, we just said, how about Scott? And Scott goes, what?
Yeah, there was no way Jim or Tom was going to work with us at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so from the patch bay to the hot seat, that's a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was Scott's first take on being an engineer as well. So let's get back to dissecting this silly part of the song. Again, we're talking long before digital. This is all analog. This is reel to reel. And people don't know this. Slowly We Rot, the album was recorded on 8 tracks. This is not a 24-track studio at the time. So we had to do 6 drums. We had to do 6 microphones on my drum kit. When I got the song right, we bounced it down stereo. Then you have your 6 tracks open. Then they did guitars. When they were happy with that, they bounced that. So people don't realize this. And I find it hard to believe that it was that way back in 87 or 88 when we were recording it. But this is how we recorded Slowly We Rot.
That's unreal. And for the
crazy?
listeners, for the listeners, real quick, what Donald's talking about, when you did those bounce downs from the drums, you only had 8 tracks. When you did the bounce, you had to make sure that the levels were right. The tom had to be the right volume, because there was no going back after that point.
That's right. So not only did I have to make sure, I'm happy with my drum fill and my performance on that song, you had to make sure the kick drum and snare drum volumes and the toms and the cymbals, the mix was what you wanted, because the minute that he bounces it down, it's done. Done deal.
Yeah.
So now you have a master volume for the drum kit, but it's a done deal. Now the guitar players are going to have to do their parts, and then we bounce them on top of each other. So John can have 2 channels so he can do his shit. It's hard for me and John to even conceive that. It was so long ago, but that really is how Morrisound Recordings was back in 1987.
That's incredible. And, I kind of gave Scott a little too much credit for the time period. It wasn't till later that he was, you guys pretty much with your record put him on the map. You were one of the first. So
we were the first. Yeah. Scott was our first project.
This was still at the old Morrisound too for some of that.
Yep.
Yeah. That's incredible. I got the chance to do overdubs. There was some backing vocals that we missed in California, and I was living in Tampa at the time. It was around 05, Donald. I got to go, and I go in the studio, and it was Tom Morris. He answered the door, and I'm like, I was just awestruck, and got in there and just was able to do some vocals. I had never been in there before, and so many legendary records I grew up on.
Awesome.
It was incredible. So we, at the 40-second mark, we get into the first vocal, and the vocals sound straight out of hell here, John. They do. I've said a couple of times on this show, a couple of guys that can scream, and yours is beyond a scream. It's this guttural bellow that you do. I have scream envy. I could try to emulate it, could never do it. That's why I always laugh when people are like, "Oh, it's just a bunch of noise." Like, you try it. You try to make that sound come out of your mouth, and we'll see how you fare.
Let's try and do it for 19 days in a row on a concert, an hour a night.
Yeah, not easy.
Hey everybody, don't you dare go anywhere. There's lots more Chris DeMakes a podcast after these messages from our sponsors. Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we welcome a special guest to come take a deep dive into a one-hit wonder artist with us. And together, we decide if that artist brought the one-hit thunder or was nothing more than a one-hit blunder. You can find One Hit Thunder anywhere that you listen to podcasts, so hit that subscribe button and join in on the fun each week.
Ready for a head-bangingly good time? Dive into the world of heavy metal with the Brutally Delicious podcast. Here, we don't just talk music. We welcome you into our heavy metal family. Join us for candid chats with legends and rising stars. We go beyond the typical interviews, exploring raw emotions and the life-altering impact of heavy metal. So whether you're a diehard metalhead or just curious, join our family and let the headbanging begin with the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
And now, back to the show.
When the vocals come in here, it sounds like there's like more of a delay and pre-delay on the vocal in the left speaker, but it's also swirling to the right. It's just a evil sounding thing that's going on there, and I'm sure that was had to do with Scott in the mix.
Yeah, those are cymbals. I think we took cymbals that rang out and flipped them on the reel, spun them in, brought them in backwards.
Yeah. So again, let's break it down for the listeners. Again, back to analog. We did, just like how we were just talking about, we wanted some crazy backwards feeling thing before the tom and the bell. So same thing with John, when he's coming into that first line, that first word of his verse, he wanted us a backward sounding, and so what we had to do was we had to take cymbals and probably hit one cymbal, or John said something with some reverb on it. Record it. You got to flip the tape. You literally got to take the reel to reels, those two reel to reels off the fucking machine, flip them over backwards, and then make it go. And it sounds all weird, but then you have to put it on top. It's pretty incredible when you think analog, all the shit that went down to make one simple band member happy. Hey man, I want a backwards reverb thing.
Yeah, this is going to take an hour and a half. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's why we spent so much money in the studio.
Yeah, and now it's a push of a button in Pro Tools. It's incredible, right?
It is incredible.
I had written here, there's a cool backwards cymbal that starts right before verse 1's panned off to the right speaker, comes in.
Yep.
And, I wasn't going to say this, but I kind of have to. I called Donald last night. It was late, and I said, man, I've obviously heard Slowly We Rot. It's been a minute since I actually, dissected the track and really got into it, but I've heard the song, and there's just these lyrics online, and they're all seem to be wrong. And I printed out the ones that I thought, and Donald enlightened me and said, well, back in the day, John would just get up there and stream of consciousness, just like sing what he was feeling. There was no lyrics. And like, I woke up this morning, Donald, the first thing I thought of was what you said. I'm like, was he pulling my leg? He wasn't. He was dead serious. Like, were there other bands doing that? I mean, there's some death metal bands, their vocals are indiscernible. You can't, some of the Cannibal Corpse stuff, you can't understand anything they're saying. But like, I feel like I can understand some of this, and the lyrics that I pulled, they're kind of in the ballpark. But was this all just off the top of your head for real?
Yeah, it was super strange. I don't even know if I can explain it really. There was just so many times back in the day that it was just, I just didn't feel it necessary to come up with some specific word. It was more the specific sound that I was looking for, if you will. I have no idea why I started doing it that way, but back then there was so many of those lyrics are just, there's not even words. They're just made up sounds more than they are words that come together to mean anything.
Well, it's interesting, and I guess this makes total sense now that this was Scott's first production. Scott Burns was more interested in figuring out, okay, I got to make the drums, I got to pan all this stuff over, put it down to one track. He's probably wasn't concerned with the lyrics, as any producer now would be like, where's the lyrics? I want the lyrics in front of me. We're going to cut the vocals. What are you saying? So I think this is the last thing on Scott's mind. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I mean, it was totally weird. It was totally weird. But and I don't remember ever talking about it back when we were doing it. Nobody ever asked or questioned me. I don't know. Maybe they just couldn't understand half of what I was saying anyway. So maybe they didn't ask to.
Did that continue, John, with Cause of Death in the subsequent records, or was this just the first record thing?
I mean, Cause of Death, probably not very much. I mean, ever since Slowly, especially, I mean, through the years, I've been writing more and more. Now today there's full lyric sheets, or, you're certainly not going to get a video played on anything without turning over the lyrics to them. They have to know what you're saying just to, so you're not saying something crazy, I guess.
So, and I looked online, I couldn't find it. And I wish I had a copy of the original record, and I don't anymore. But
there's no lyrics on any of our records.
Okay. I was going to say there couldn't have been lyrics then for what you're saying on the record. But
there's actually no lyrics on any of our albums.
I'm going to read what I found online, because I always go through the lyrics line by line here. And this is now what I'm calling an intro with vocals. You have the instrumental intro, now the intro with vocals. Kill all, fight death, lesions, like a skin lesion. Lesions fighting love.
Man. That is, wow. That was horrible.
And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And it doesn't mean anything, because it's not what John was saying.
No. Well, there was no lesions, no love in there. No.
Well, what's funny is just people online doing their best to say, I think I know what he's saying. I'm going to write it down. And then they publish it. It's hilarious.
And you got to get a kick out. You guys are in, playing a huge festival in Milan, Italy, and there's people, that don't speak a lick of English singing these words back to you that they don't know what they're saying either. And at that point, actually, they have more in common with John than someone that speaks English. So that's perfect. I'll tell you, I love this song, just death metal in general, and that's what attracted me to death metal, and even punk music. The early stuff was there's no rules on song structure or arrangement at all. There's nothing here fits like verse, chorus, solo. In fact, at the 52-second mark, there's this guitar solo from hell by your original guitarist Alan West that comes in. It's very Kerry King. I'm assuming that was one of his influences. It's got this whammy, and it's just, I don't know, it's evil sounding. And this solo isn't short. This solo goes on from the 52-second mark to 1 minute and 18 seconds. So it's about almost a 30-second solo.
Big Al was awesome with that whammy bar. I mean, a lot of that was just, literally was him, his own style. I mean, he had a Jackson back in the day. It was his old Jackson, one of them,
V's.
One of them V's, not the full V, but whatever you call them things. And man, I just remember he used to just be able to sit there and hold sustain and pull that dive bar and just go lower and lower and lower, and it would just go forever. But I really think a lot of that was him, just an early age. It's just what he just was born to kind of do, He really was good at it.
Wrote down here, it's evil as hell sounding. That's all I can say about this solo. It's great. At the 1 minute and 18 seconds mark, the drums stop and the guitars just ring out. And then at 1 minute 24, we get what I'm calling verse 1. And Donald, the beat switches there to the classic fast thrash drum beat. It's kind of double time.
Yeah.
And it's just kicking your butt here. Fight them all in a living hell. That sounds like a death metal lyric.
That's not too bad. That's pretty close.
Slowly rot and you die.
Slowly rot and die.
You fight death as you slowly realize. Kill them all. Fight death and slowly read in the love. No, you guys definitely weren't singing about love. Okay, we're gonna leave that to Lionel Richie. Fight them all. Join me. Slowly we rot. Slowly we rot. I think those two are right.
Those are right.
Yep, fight them all. Join me. Slowly we rot.
So again, you guys are at your mom's place. You're rehearsing. You've done this song a bunch. You're going in to record it. Is this what you were singing in the rehearsal room pretty much? Was it starting to become a thing you were singing, or do you recall?
Yeah, I mean, even to this day, I still kind of sing the same stuff, and just some of them aren't really, they're not words. They're just kind of sounds that just come along and just mumble through it,
Have you talked to other singers in the genre from death metal that have done that?
I don't think any. No.
I'll answer that. Fuck no.
It's just silly, man. It's absolutely silly.
I'm not a newbie here. I've been doing this for 30 years too. I've never heard of somebody doing that. Especially you guys are on road. It's not like you're some demo band. You're on Roadrunner Records. And Roadrunner, for all intents and purposes, they were a major label. They were a label out of Europe that started.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like the greatest place, the best place for you guys to be. And here you are going in and recording something without lyrics. It's incredible. I've never heard of that before. Like, I'm in awe. It's funny. It's great. It's all these things that are happening in my brain right now. It's I've never heard it before. It's different.
It's totally weird.
Yeah.
Not sure what to say. I don't know why it happened, why it did. I don't know, but can't explain it.
It's great. At the 1 minute and 44 second mark, we're going into what I call verse 2. The riff changes here, and the drums switch to double bass. You know, for panning and doing the things you had to do, Donald, and the fact that this is pre-Pro Tools analog recording, it sounds great. The drums sound really good here. I had it cranked in headphones last night. I'm listening to it, and it still sounds great today. I'm going to read again through these lyrics. We'll see what John wants to, agree to, that they're kind of right. Dead to all, fighting as you slowly read in your love. There it is again. Fighting the sword. The sword is your plow, dead to all.
Yeah, none of that rings a bell to me.
But you know what? I'm reading through these and I'm like, that's what he's saying. It does sound like that. But then when I got done, I'm like, there's no way he's saying love. It doesn't work. No. Fighting is your slowly rotting in hell. Fight them all. Join me. Slowly we dwell. Slowly we dwell.
Yeah. Slowly we dwell is right.
Okay.
I don't know.
So 2 words in there, right? We're gonna say slowly we rot in the first verse and slowly we dwell. So that's what we got, and the rest of it was just John vocal riffing in front of the mic. Okay, on the first slowly we dwell, right there. I love this part because it goes back to the original verse riff. It changes there, and that's cool. At the 2 minutes and 1 second mark, there's now 3 measures of just the band doing that verse riff again that we just changed to. And then at the 2 minutes and 10 second mark, there's this killer delay on this vocal, and the the word that they in the lyrics here, and I can't imagine why you would say this, but it sounds like you're saying decharge.
To die.
It's to die.
It's to die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, to die.
To die. All right, I'm going to go online and change all of those lyric sites after we get off here. We're in now what we're calling the bridge, and that's actually besides a growl and I think it's a rot later on. That's the last lyric we're going to hear at this 2 minute and 10 second mark till 3 minutes and 36 seconds. It's pretty much some of the last vocals. We're now into a guitar solo, and this is over the verse riff until 2 minutes and 34 seconds. So it's a 24-second guitar solo. Again, just evil sounding. I think I can speak for every teenager my age that was into this stuff. This kind of solo was just going to piss your parents off and the neighbors and everybody else that came in earshot of it.
It was cool.
Yeah, and that's Big Al with that Jackson V, man. He could make noise with that thing for sure.
Yeah, it's ripping. From the 2 minute and 34 second mark to the 2 minute and 44 second mark, the verse 2 riff comes back. It's played by itself with just sporadic drum, bass, and guitar hits. Dun, dun, dun. And that's as the band continues to play at 2:44. This growl happens, okay? And are you saying anything there, or is there just this guttural growl?
That's just noise.
Just noise.
Just
okay.
noise.
Which I always kind of looked at the death metal with the vocals as almost another percussive instrument at times.
It's really kind of how I looked at it back in the day. I'd really just, made up with Trevor's sound. His amp is always in my ear right there, and it's really just kind of where I over the years, I've just kind of fall right in tune and right in sound with his sound is just so Trevor, and it's always right in my ear. And that's what I always just kind of sync up to.
After that growl that John does, there's 4 measures of the verse 2 riff. So you get 4 measures of that full band. And then at 2 minutes and 54 seconds, the guitar riff changes yet again as the drums switch to the double bass. Then at the 3 minute and 9 second mark, the drums go to double time until 3 minutes and 22 seconds. And this is what I'm now calling the outro of the song. The last vocal of the song here sounds like you're saying rot. Is that what you're saying?
That's it. Yep.
I got one right.
Got it right.
All right.
My arms are in the air. I am victorious. I swear. I got off the phone last night and I called Chris, our producer, Donald, and I'm like, you're not going to believe this. He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I told him the story, but that's awesome, John, that you did that. And that's awesome that Scott Burns was just along for the ride. And it's even more amazing that there's legions of fans. I don't just listen to the original song. I go and watch live videos. I want to hear if he did it in different key, if you add extended solos, if things are different. We like to change things live sometimes. And I saw I want to say it was maybe Dynamo Festival or something from 2017 you guys played. Slowly We Rot, and there's just 20,000 people, fists in the air, going crazy on a song that you just kind of were making up in front of the mic. That's incredible.
Did it sound the same?
It did. It did. You fooled me.
I swear, I think even today when we play these songs, it sounds the same to me. I don't know.
I think I'm pretty good at this, and you fooled me. After the rot vocal, again, I'm calling this the outro, the drums go back to the classic thrash beat over the guitar riff from verse 1, and the back half of verse 2 happens to end the song at 3 minutes and 36 seconds. As far as structures go, one of the weirdest structures of the song. The solos are in odd places, but it works, you know. And looking back on this song, a lot of stuff that I did, my first 2 records, I consider, well, at least our first record's definitely, it sounds like a demo. And the second one was a demo that we had money with, but we were still learning our instruments. It's kind of a odd question, but do you still appreciate the original recording? Can you listen to it for what it's worth?
To me, it's kind of so much like the pictures your mom has hanging up on the wall of you when you were young, and your friends come over, and
I'd use that example.
You're in that weird look. It's just what you look like. It's what we sounded like. You know what I mean? So there is no changing it. There's no erasing it. There's no redoing it. It is what it is, and it was what it was, and totally happy and proud of it the way it was.
Yeah.
You just always. You always think you can do better. Even with the last album we did, you always go back and listen to it and assume you can do better. Think you can do better. And we certainly have better sounding records, I think, throughout the years. But hey, we were so young at the time. We were deer in the headlights in that studio. Everything was new to us, and just love it. I remember to this day, getting that first copy of Slowly Rot, standing out in front of my house. The mailman showed up. I opened it up, and I can remember to this day where I was standing right next to my Forerunner, and opened that vinyl up and had it in my hands, and it was awesome.
What a feeling, right?
Yeah,
I remember,
it was awesome.
I remember doing that for the first time, but it's just disbelief. It's like, this is real. And going back to that time period again, it seems like, I know you guys you've been playing since '84. You'd played tons of shows together. You guys as brothers were always together and playing and rehearsing at your mom's place. But what was this like now getting on Roadrunner? I'm looking at your touring history. I'm pulling it up yesterday, and by 1990 you were already in Europe. That's incredible.
Yeah, we never even toured until the first tour was in Europe, actually.
No kidding.
Yep.
What was that like? Here you are again, pre-internet. You couldn't just type in fashions in Germany and see what people were wearing. It had to be just like a culture shock, right?
Yeah,
it was insane. And you're also talking about band. We didn't play out a lot. We did not play a lot of shows. Yeah, we played a little bit here at the Sunset, this and that. We did not do a whole lot. So for us to show up at that first, heck, I remember one of our guys that we took with us, Irv, he was like, dude, I ain't never been out of Florida. And he's like, and here we are, we're stomping through Europe on a grueling tour with the Demolition Hammer guys that, we're still friends with to this day. Just an unbelievable experience, of a lifetime. I remember a lot of it. So.
And now the record's out and you're looking out. Do you remember you're in Europe? Do you remember looking out and there's people singing the wrong lyrics back to you?
So me and John are now back 30 years ago. We're discussing what came first and what year. 1990 was when we went to Europe, but James Murphy was already in the band.
Okay.
Murphy was also on the Sacred Right US tour as well. He was on both those.
And for the listeners, James played with Death, correct?
James played with Death. Yep.
And then he went on to play with Testament in the 90s. I know that.
Yep.
And, okay.
And 1,000 other bands, I guess.
Yeah, killer guitarist.
Yeah, for a lot, but it's kind of, you could see me and John, or you can hear that me and John are actually having to discuss this amongst the two of us, because it's kind of racking our brain, because Alan West, our original guitar player with Trevor, Alan was there for all those early shows here in Tampa and playing Sunset Club and playing Janice Landing. And that was all Alan West. When we got signed to Roadrunner, Alan was still on Slowly We Rot. But when we actually had to get our passports and we were going to be a band to go on tour to support it, by then it was 1990 and we had already recorded Cause of Death. So there were 2 albums on this for us because James was a part of Cause of Death, and we got on an airplane all together with passports as 20-year-olds, and we flew to Europe for our first tour. So again, it goes to show how old we are.
Yeah, well, and that was what, Big Al kind of just went MIA at the time. And Scott Burns we needed some solos done on Cause of Death. And that's where Scott Burns, once again, he's the guy that was like, hey, I know this guy that's shredding leads if you want, and called up James Murphy. And that's kind of why those solos are on there.
Yeah.
Scott Burns.
So Slowly We Rot album and that release did not get any touring besides us as a young band doing stuff here in America, mainly in Florida. We flew with Big Al to the first Milwaukee Metal Fest in 1989, I think that was. So we weren't, like John said, we weren't touring a lot or playing that many shows for Slowly We Rot. It was when in 1990, when we realized that we were going to record the second album that we then started thinking of touring. And so yeah, that is an eye opener even for the two of us. It's bringing back memories.
Well, you again, I said it at the top, you guys are lifers. You're an amazing band. You're one of the best in the scene. That's why you're still doing it. But in closing, one last thing. What's it like to still be doing it all these years later? I know what it's like for me, but what's it like to get out there? You're going to Europe and there's people with heck, probably a third of your age at this point, I can speak for myself there, singing these songs back to you.
It's pretty cool. I mean, because not only do you have your fans, I remember you guys back from, 1990, but they're there with their kids, and their kids have Obituary gear on, and they're sending us pictures all the time through the fans' email, and they're always, sending us pictures of their kids and stuff. And I think it's cool. You know what I mean? I'm okay with, getting older and still doing what we're doing, and we're having fun. So it's great to see a new generation of fans growing up and getting into it.
Yeah, there's nothing more exciting for me than to show up to the studio and play my drums. I've been that way since I was about 14 years old. I am 51 years old, and there's nothing more exciting than walking in the studio, seeing my drum set and being able to play it every day. And then like what you brought up, Chris, what is it like that playing a live show, getting on the bus and going and getting ready to tour again? It's all I know. It's all I do well.
I feel you on that one. Well, I want to thank you guys for sitting in. It was great just as my friends to be able to see. I hadn't seen you face to face in a minute, but what would you like to leave the listeners with? I know you're talking about that new record. You got this Black Label tour gearing up again. Anything else in the obituary world?
Yeah, music scene, as we all know, fans know as well because they didn't get to see their favorite bands. But just like you and us, we've been handcuffed for going on a year and a half now, sitting home. So we could not be more excited to realize that the engine's going to get fired back up and we're actually going to get to go do what we need to do and we do well and what we do for a living. So we're super stoked. Like you said, we actually recording right now. I got 7 songs down. I got 3 more songs to go on the new album. So we are right in the middle of recording this thing, and they are coming out killer. And we're ready. We're ready for the future, and we're going to stay super busy. And we hope fans that have been waiting for us come see us, and more importantly, some of the fans that might be listening that are your fans, that knowing that you're telling them your friends are Obituary, come check it out. Hopefully they come check us out because live is what we feel we do well. Albums are one thing, but we are super comfortable on stage knowing that we throw down pretty well.
Right on. Well, thanks so much, guys.
Right on, Chris.
Thank you, man.
Good seeing you, and can't wait to see you in person, dude.
Hey, everybody, don't touch that dial. There's plenty more Chris DeMakes a podcast after a few words from our sponsors.
The number you have reached is 100.7 WMMS.
It wasn't just a radio station, it was a lifestyle.
Cleveland is a rock and roll city for sure.
Yeah! Down! The Wrath of the Buzzard. WMMS. Cleveland.
The rise and fall of one of the most iconic radio stations in America. Profiles, The Wrath of the Buzzard, PROH Files. Subscribe now wherever you get podcasts.
If you're looking for an inexpensive and unique gift for a friend, family member, or even for yourself, check out iloveenamelpins.com. From Hollywood stars like Jeff Goldblum and Meryl Streep, to fictional characters like the Golden Girls or Jack Torrance, to sports stars and musicians and politicians and dogs and cats, there's something for everyone at iloveenamelpins.com. As an added bonus, use the discount code DeMakes at checkout to save 30% off your order at iloveenamelpins.com.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, all you have to do is submit your song via MP3 only and your bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured band is A Living Hell from St. Louis, Missouri. In keeping with our October Halloween theme here, they're a horror-influenced punk rock band featuring Jason on vocals, Mike on guitar, and Matt on the drums. Here's a snippet of their song, Out for Blood.
Just to drink my blood, you're out for blood. The chills in the air as I'm fucking dying here. I notice something changing inside of me. You left me for dead, but I'm just
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Well, Chris, this is one of those episodes where I wish people could see your face because you were smiling the whole time. And yeah, man, you're not kidding. You're a metalhead. And it's cool to see you talk about metal. You seem to be very enthusiastic about it.
Well, I think, a lot of times, and I meant to ask them this in the episode, like, what does your relatives and your parents think of this stuff? They could see your success. You're playing to legions of fans across the world. But, to a lot of people, death metal and thrash is indiscernible noise. And the bands that do it well, it's anything but that. When you peel back the layers, some of the musicianship, some of these guys, Donald is a ripper. He's an incredible drummer. What his brother does with his voice, like I said in the episode, it's like a percussive instrument. Here I am watching videos of them from, recently. He can still scream like that. I don't know how he could do that. And I would lose my voice after one song. The talent is immense.
Yeah, when I found out that we were having Obituary on here, and I can't say that I came from metal at all, but I have some friends that are metalheads. And when I told my friends that like metal that we were having Obituary, and not only having Obituary, but talking about Slowly Rewrought, they were like, wow, that's like a classic. That's like a legendary song and album. And I'm not as familiar, but I know that people are going to be excited about this episode if they are into metal. And dude, I just learned recently, I have friends that play in metal bands. I just recently learned that death metal, for anyone who doesn't know, yeah, it originated in Florida. Like, that is a Florida thing. And I didn't know that. I guess I got death metal and black metal mixed up. It's completely different thing.
It is, it does have a crossover again, like some of the bands I mentioned with the punks, the DRIs and the Cro-Mags were kind of crossing over into metal territory. And then of course you had bands like Venom and Celtic Frost. Venom was from England. Celtic Frost was from Germany. And these bands were, I guess at the time, considered black metal, but it had a lot of the same grooves, a lot of the same imagery, lyrics wise, and so there was a crossover. But as far as death metal goes, yeah, I'd say Tampa, as we said in the episode, it is the capital, the epicenter of death metal.
Dude, it was so funny. I think it was one of the funniest moments on Chris DeMakes a Podcast when you were reading the lyrics that people put online when there are no lyrics to this. And every time you said something about love, I was over here laughing out loud, being like, there's no way they're singing the word love. And yeah, that wasn't right. There was no, like John said, no lesions, no love in these lyrics.
No, and like I said, it just totally makes sense now. And I kind of gave Scott which he's an amazing legendary producer, Scott Burns, but I gave him a little too much credit too early. Didn't realize this was like his first production that got him on the map. He really made a name for himself down there. He was the go-to producer, but it makes sense now that he basically came from the patch bay as a second engineer into the producer's seat. He had so many other things to worry about with this recording and getting it right than the lyrics, because now you come to a producer like, what are you singing? I don't know, it's just off the cuff. You'd be like, what? And if there is one genre that you can get away with this, it would be death metal.
Right. And you said it in the episode that I think in metal a lot of times that whether it's screams or it's guttural growls or whatever it is, the way that particular band uses vocals, there is a percussive element to it. And as far as not having lyrics necessarily, it's because you can use your voice as an instrument, and it's more of a feeling than it is a sort of poetry like it is in pop music, or, in most music, there's a certain poetic level to it. But I think in metal, a lot of times it is more of a guttural thing and a percussive thing, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, a lot of times rappers will say nonsense words or noises. Of course, Michael Jackson had his little isms that he did, and death metal, a lot of the grunts and the growls, they're indiscernible lyrics wise, but they add to the song and to the emotion and what the band's trying to get across. And again, the bands that did it well, and there's a ton of death metal bands. You got to comb through them, but Obituary's they're the cream of the crop. They're right there at the top. That's why they're getting calls to do Slayer tours. They're worth tickets. In 2021, out with Black Label Society, they're worth tickets because they're a great band.
They were part of creating an entire type of music and then became the best at it. And it's not like they were trying to be mainstream successful. They knew who their fans were, and the fans came to them and what they were doing rather than trying to appeal to fans of other things. Does that make sense? Am I making
absolutely.
sense?
And something that I had talked to you about, Chris, that I think is funny, I didn't bring up to Donald, I meant to, but when I met him on the Warped Tour in 2003, when he was drumming for Andrew WK, I remember the story of him telling me that, when Andrew basically did that first record by himself, and his producer basically said, hey, the label's like, you got to go out and tour this. You need a band. And Andrew put together his band with a bunch of Florida death metal guys. And the label, they walk into the label with the Obituary guys, and this is my band. They're like, what? These long-haired, bearded guys? We want to get promo pictures. This is your band, and that's no knock against what they look like, but they were just like, this is the last thing we thought you'd put together, Andrew. And man, the band just ripped. They were so good. Got to meet Donald, as I said, on that tour, and he was just, I was kind of starstruck, for lack of a better term. I was just like, wow, this is the drummer from Obituary. I mean, they are legends in Florida. They are. And growing up seeing them and just never, ever expecting to be on tour with them, it was really cool.
You can't knock the musicianship when it comes to metal. That's one thing about metal, is that, I'm sure these guys can go from playing the riffs and playing the sort of things they do to step into something like something more pop or something, and just be like, oh, I can completely destroy this. This is like nothing to me,
Oh yeah. I mean, their guitar player at the time, Alan West, they were talking about James Murphy, all these guys, just absolute shredders. And, like I said, I called them lifers. I respect nothing more in this business than a band that can just go through all the changing times. You got to think of where music has gone from 1989 until now, and they're still out there doing their thing, being who they only can be, which is Obituary. It's great.
Yeah, there's something really cool about staying true to yourself and your music throughout every trend. You see a lot of bands that will hop on to whatever trends next, and a lot of artists like whatever's popular now. And honestly, if you're doing that, by the time you do that thing that's popular now, by the time you record and you're done, that thing is already old, So there's something to staying true to yourself and the music you make.
Well, speaking of staying true to yourself, Chris, I think Obituary's done a pretty damn good job of doing that over the years. You're not going to get an acoustic ballad on an Obituary record. It's not happening.
No, never? We're not going to get it?
I don't think so, and that's much respected. There's some bands that do their thing, they do it well, and they're not going to differentiate that much from it, and their fans appreciate them for that.
Yeah, for sure, man. You know what else I appreciate about Obituary? When I was I was making the ads for this episode and just preparing for this episode, I wasn't that familiar with them, but the cover of this album, of the Slowly We Rot album, I love it. It's like this zombie guy passed out on the ground. It says Slowly We Rot in kind of like green, like sort of puke like letters. Like, it is just so badass. I can't say I'm like a huge death metal guy, but like I want that T-shirt.
Yeah, this show has been just so cool for me because a lot of the people I've had in here have been my friends, and I've known Donald and John forever, and just to get them to sit in and what a hilarious episode. I had genuine laughs.
Yeah, that was great, man, for sure.
So this is the third episode of the month of Halloween month here at Krista Makes a Podcast. We got one more coming up for you that we're really excited about. In the meantime, give me a follow on Instagram at @LessThanChrisD if you can.
And if you can, join our Facebook group. Our Facebook group is a lot of fun, regardless of what you think about Facebook. I feel like I'm always assuming people don't like Facebook. It's totally fine if you put pictures of your cats on there and whatever. It sometimes gets a little weird. And regardless of what you think about Mark Zuckerberg, our Facebook group for Krista Makes a Podcast is a fun place.
That's right. I want to thank this week's guests, yes, plural guests, Donald Tardy and John Tardy from Obituary for sitting in with us, and we'll see you next week.
I can see you from miles away.
Buying Up All Your Gray, the new EP from Pack, is now streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere else you get your tunes. Featuring members of the Juliana Theory, Zayo, and Punchline, Pack brings decades of indie, hardcore, and alternative influence to their debut release. Limited edition screen-printed vinyl available now at mindovermatterrecords.com.
Ready for a head-bangingly good time? Dive into the world of heavy metal with the Brutally Delicious Podcast. Here, we don't just talk music. We welcome you into our heavy metal family. Join us for candid chats with legends and rising stars. We go beyond the typical interviews, exploring raw emotions and the life-altering impact of heavy metal. So whether you're a diehard metalhead or just curious, join our family and let the headbanging begin with the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
The number you have reached is 100.7 WMMS.
It wasn't just a radio station, it was a lifestyle.
Cleveland is a rock and roll city for sure.
Get down!
The Wrath of the Buzzard. WMMS. Cleveland.
The rise and fall of one of the most iconic radio stations in America. Profiles, The Wrath of the Buzzard, PROH Files. Subscribe now wherever you get podcasts.